Hi everybody, and thanks for joining today. So I'm Becky and I'm hosting today's session. So we've got a few housekeeping notes that we need to go through before we start. So please ensure that your cameras are off and your mics are muted during the session. We're going to have an open chat box. So if you have any questions or any thoughts that you have for the panel, please pop them in there as well. You're able to send the questions so everybody can see, or alternatively, you can send the questions to just the host and the panelists by selecting this from the drop-down menu. We will ask as many questions as we can at the end of the panel. And for everybody's reference, we're also currently streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So we're thrilled to have you to joining us today on the 8th of October for the second week of this year's Black History Month. We at Enterprise are hosting this event. However, the topics that we are discussing are relative to multiple industries and roles. We wanted to use this platform to host some real conversations around the experience our current Black leaders have had as they have entered their early career and how they have balanced this with their personal commitments. It is incredibly important to come together and recognise and celebrate the fantastic achievements of people from Black heritage throughout history. It is also important to ensure we move forward collectively, that every voice is heard, every talent nurtured, and every opportunity open to all. This cannot be done by one or two people alone. Everyone must acknowledge and act. As a large employer within the UK, we hold a responsibility to address this topic, and we continue to do so, both externally, like sessions we are holding today, and internally, through the development, mentorship, and support of our current employees. As a company, we are by no means preaching we are experts in this field. However, the actions we have taken thus far have seen an improvement of 7% increase in Black employees in our workforce in the UK and Ireland over the last 12 months. Today, we will be discussing resilience, and over the remaining 3 weeks, we'll be hosting a series of informative conversations on the topics that matter to you, the students of the day today, the leaders of tomorrow. We will highlight the journey that many of our employees in Black heritage have been on, the resilience they have demonstrated, the communication difficulties they have faced, and the encouragement they have found. Today, we are sharing with our Southwest team and discussing resilience. Amos, one of our area managers in the Southwest region, will be leading today's session and will talk about his career path and how he's been able to stay true to himself and be resilient throughout his journey. During the panel session, we will be discussing how you can become more resilient and overcome challenges you may face at the start of your career. So another quick reminder before I hand over to Amos is that we are opening up for questions. So whilst you listen to his story, please feel free to pop any questions into the chat box. So Amos, over to you.
Thank you very much, Becky, and good morning to you all. So my name is Amos Majeni, and I'm the area manager for U2R, which is the Southwest region. So my career started with Enterprise back in 2013. I was an intern down at West Croydon. So how I actually got to work for Enterprise is probably about 2 years into my degree. I didn't actually know what it is that I wanted to do. I was studying business management. I love business, I quite like cars, but I didn't know where exactly my career was going to take me. So I went along to a careers fair, and Enterprise were there, and they gave a presentation about the business, and they said how you can essentially learn the different aspects, whether that's marketing, accounting, finance, sales, operations, and how you can also basically run your own business with someone else's money, which sounded great to me. But I did also feel that I didn't have the skills required to be successful or take on the role. So after Enterprise had given this presentation, I went up and I met with a recruiter, and I said, you know what, this sounds like a fantastic opportunity, but I'm not too sure if I've got the experience or the skills required. The recruiter asked me, what have I done before? I'd had some part-time roles, and they were like, okay, well, when you've done that, there was sales, and when you've done that, that was customer service, and you've come over to me now to communicate. So essentially, it seems like you do have the skills. And the recruiter then said to me, never ever undersell yourself. And I thought, wow, I haven't even joined the company, but for someone to be saying this to me at this early stage, this is definitely somewhere I want to be. So anyway, I applied for the role, successful for the 1-year internship, and this was undertook down at West Croydon. I immersed myself in the business, completed something called my management qualification index after 7.5 months, which just showed my knowledge of the business and meant that I was also promotable. So I then went back to university and I took on the role of working part-time at the branch, but I was also something called a campus brand manager, which some of you may have at uni, which was basically me spreading awareness of enterprise and also putting forward some great candidates. So then when returning from university, I was actually then promoted to assistant manager after 2 weeks because I ensured that I remained promotable. Done this for 1 year. And then from here, I was promoted to branch manager of the same location, West Croydon. And it was here where I was really able to start making a name for myself and building on some of my own legacies. We had some great promotions during this time at West Croydon, and the business performed pretty well as well. So it was about a year into my branch manager career where unfortunately I came to a difficult situation. I was at a bit of a crossroads. My family were initially from Uganda in East Africa, and they had come to me with some family commitments which required me to be out there. Initially, I brushed this off because I loved everything that I was doing, but where I'd always performed in the business and I placed a strong emphasis on my team, I didn't want how I was feeling to start affecting them or the business. So unfortunately, I came to a difficult decision of leaving. To cut a long story short, it was probably about 6 months into my time in Uganda where I realized that I'd made a massive mistake. Me being there was not where my skill set lay. It was not my dream. It was not my career. It was not for me. So I sat down with my parents and I explained to them. Luckily enough, they're in a lot better position at that time. And I told them that I wanted to head back. So I came back to the UK and I'd been in close communication with some area managers who are great friends of mine, who were actually mentors for me at the time. And I told them how, I'd made a mistake in leaving at the time. And then I went and met with Enterprise head office. Essentially, I laid my cards on the table, told them how I'd made a huge mistake. I should have never really left. I learned a lot about myself during this time because it takes a lot of courage, but also a lot of humility to admit that I made such an error of judgment. But I genuinely believe that's partly made me into the leader who I am today. The real reason why I share this with you, as a company, we don't promote at all leaving or coming back or anything like that. But why I wanted to share this with you is because the resilience for me really kicked in for the stages that then led on. So here I am, I'm back at Enterprise, and I know there could potentially be a successful career ahead of me, but I was struggling with these thoughts in my mind thinking, who am I to think that I can go on and have a successful career? Amos, the young black boy from a council estate, how can I go on and be successful in what I'm doing? And a lot of this was based on how I grew up, the areas and the statistics around me saying that, I'm destined for a life of crime or to be in jail or anything like that. I'm thinking, how can I now go on and be successful in what I'm doing? But what I then had to realize and how I had to be resilient is because I needed to realize that the barriers that were actually restricting me were within me. It was nothing to do with the external factor of the company which I was working from. If anything, I was part of a company which valued me as an employee. Enterprise were a meritocracy, which essentially means you're rewarded for your hard work and for your performance. Nothing to do about race, gender, any ethnic diversity. I was actually just struggling with this myself. And in order for me to combat this and be resilient, there was a few things that I'd done. I reached out to my support network once again, told them how I was feeling. They also reminded me that, Enterprise, we are a meritocracy, just like what you said. And if you continue to stay true to yourself, you can progress in the company. And then I also had to remember that, sometimes you go through life experience at a young age and you have the stigmas that are in the back of your mind as a young black individual, but you need to understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel if you continue to stay true and focus. So as much as I had these thoughts in the back of my mind, it was also one of the biggest motivating and driving factors for me because I never ever wanted to be a statistic and I never ever wanted to fail. I always told myself that I'm going to be one of the people to break the barrier and to show other people that it can be done. So that was partly where the resilience came in, especially as I was actually combating the thoughts that were in my mind. It was also still a strong driving factor for me. I then went on to run 2 central London locations. I managed Park Lane and Russell Square, which were great experiences, challenging offices, but we had some fantastic achievements and some great performance there. I then went back on to South London, South Croydon, which I managed for another year. Subsequently from that, I was promoted to area manager most recently 2 months ago. So as I said, why I wanted to share my experience with you was because I know there'll be a lot of you listening who there might not necessarily be external factors, which you're thinking that you can't go on and progress. sometimes it can be the own barriers in our mind, and those are sometimes the hardest mountains that we need to climb. But if you continue to remain focused and be resilient and think about the bigger picture, that you can also go into progress in your career through conversations such as this, through educating people, through companies such as Enterprise, where we look to be an inclusive workforce, which we are, and promote these messages. I was very fortunate that throughout my working career, I've never had big challenges regarding race, but a lot of those have been dealt with from growing up at a young age, and some of the statistics and stereotypes that I had to essentially climb through and break in my mind. So it was essentially just to remind you all that being resilient, a lot of it comes through self-belief and knowing that you can do it, and just to use my own story as an example.
Thanks for that, Amos. I think it was brilliant to see, obviously, where you've had to have that resilience throughout your entire career, not only before you started it, but as a student as well, thinking that you may not have had those skills, but you did in the background as well with that. And I think that's definitely something that will relate to a lot of the students out there today as well.
Thank you.
So we've got our panel today. So we'll start with a few introductions. So Aaron, shall we start with yourself?
Hi, I'm Aaron Parry-Stevens. I'm the branch manager of the Altrincham store in Manchester.
And Lyndon?
Hi, my name is Lyndon Leonard. I am based up in Edinburgh. Recently got promoted to the assistant manager of our core staffing branch. Lived up in here, worked here for a little while, went to university here as well. So that's me.
Brilliant, thanks for that. And Bola?
Hi, my name is Bola, and I'm the assistant manager of SICUP. I recently got promoted a month ago. Just same as Lyndon, I pretty much came to this country at the age of 14. So learning the culture, the way things work, education, has been super interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to answering all your questions today.
Great, thanks for that. And then finally, Jane.
Hello everyone, I am Jane. I am the assistant manager at Enterprise Rent-A-Car in Loughborough. I was promoted back in July, so I've been in the position for what's coming up to 4 months now. And I'm about to celebrate my 2 years anniversary with Enterprise on the 14th of October. It's been some really exciting times. Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, I'm Laura. I work alongside Becky. Such an interesting start to the session this morning. Thank you so much for that, Amos. Aaron, Amos, I don't know if you want to turn on your camera and join us on the panel. I'll just kick off with the first question and then I'll disappear because it looks like Becky might be back. Yeah, really, really interesting conversation there. And I just wondered if anybody else on the panel had felt that they had an instant in their life which had really helped them to create some resilience, much in the same way that Amos had on his journey.
Yeah, I could probably answer this question for you. So mine's kind of like twofold. I had one in my own personal life which created a level of resilience that I didn't realize that I had or needed, which was around the time that I was due to finish my 4th year at university. My dissertation was due. My mum had a 7-year battle with cancer, but then it got to the point where she became too terminally ill and too weak to be able to essentially fight the cancer because she had 7 different forms as well. She was a very strong woman. So it was switching from essentially my mum being the person who looks after me now to me having to look after her whilst juggling both university, getting to the final stage. As you probably all know or will go through it, how stressful and kind of tiring doing a dissertation is, never mind having to then go home, basically not be able to sleep for 24 hours just because you're worried. So it was a combination of obviously the stresses I was having at university. Dissertation wasn't coming to plan, data and all that jazz was just not working as the way it was supposed to. So trying to play around with that, obviously having to deal with that stuff at home as well, plus managing kind of everything else in terms of trying to financially support the family, financially support myself, just trying to get myself to that next level. So it got to a point where I'd done something I would never thought I would do. I just burst out in tears. So what I did was phone my older brother, who I felt was kind of fighting the battle with me, although he was located somewhere else. He had his own stuff he was dealing with as well and his own family. It just essentially took me a minute to just let all the stresses out, just have that cry, just obviously get everything off my chest that I needed to be able to then think, okay, what do I need to do? What place can I put myself that both benefits myself, my family, and everything and everyone around me? So that was like the point where I realized, okay, although you are the baby of the family, it's time for you to essentially grow up, which is something I didn't really want to do, but just due to circumstances is what needed me to be done. So that's where I started kind of growing that resilience and that kind of self-confidence and being able to rely on other people, because I've always been a self-reliant individual. So that's when I realized having a network around you where you can necessarily just like talk to somebody about something, think of a different way of doing something, is going to be beneficial to yourself. And that's something that I've taken into my career at Enterprise, where there have been difficult days, but just because I faced something that I felt was the worst, because obviously my mum ended up passing away a few months later, and which was like the most heartbreaking moment of my life, that taught me a form of resilience that I was like, no matter how bad the day can look, nothing can ever be as worse as that. So that's what I've always taken in, and that's the attitude I always have, and that's the attitude I always kind of project towards my team. Be like, look, there's bigger things in life that are obviously going to be emotionally, physically, and mentally draining. But as long as you use the resources around you, be self-confident in who you are, just think about what you can potentially do to fix that situation, or how can you help yourself get to the next sort of stage. Just have that form of resilience, self-confidence to be able to do that. And it's something that I had to essentially do at Enterprise itself, because like Amos did, I obviously did my management qualification index as well. So I was ready to get promoted. I went for a role. Unfortunately, I wasn't successful in it. But then the following month, I wasn't able to apply just due to me not being at the level that I needed to be. So it took about 2 to 3 months and a couple of rotations. And throughout that time, I just thought, the reason that you're here is because you've obviously been given a platform by your parents to come to the UK, because I'm originally from Zimbabwe, if I didn't explain that before, to succeed. So all you have to do just now is use your resources, stay resilient, think of what do I need to do to get to that next stage. And within that, you will find success, which I have found. And as of like last week, I don't know if anyone else was on the call or the webinar, sorry. I have been able to get to that stage. And within that period as well, I've been able to be successful out with just my career. Like I've managed to buy my first house. I got engaged back in December with my long-term girlfriend. Well, we've been together about 10 years. So it's just having that form of self-confidence and resilience just to not give up. Just keep pushing until you get to where you need to be. And you never know what's on the other side. Like at this moment in my life, like I honestly can't complain about a single thing. And that's just due to that very important moment in my life, which has given me that resilience, that confidence, and the assurance that I'm not in this alone. The people around you are going to be amazing to you. And it's the same thing that I've had day in, day out within Enterprise itself, because although I wasn't able to necessarily go into that assistant manager role, like officially, didn't mean I wasn't able to do it. And I was given the platform by those around me and senior levels leadership to be able to do that. So now I'm going into this job being like, okay, I'm going for the next one because I feel that ready and I feel that confident. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks
Absolutely
for that,
inspirational. Sorry, Bex, but I just have to say that is incredible. You've been through a situation which a lot of people would really struggle with, and you found ways to then just improve your life and keep going and build that resilience. And I don my cap to you, Lyndon. Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, as well, Lyndon, I think that was such a heartwarming answer to it, that not only you've got the personal and the career side of things, that you've built that strength throughout as well. And there's always times that you're going to have to overcome these challenges as well. And I think you've done an amazing job at that as well.
Thank you very much.
I think we've also got Aaron as well to pop some answers in here.
I want to take us back to 2020 when we're seeing the images of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement spreading across the globe, essentially. Around that time, I saw a lot of comments on social media and hearing passing comments in work and stuff like that about the Black Lives Matter movement, and people obviously stereotyping and having not nice words to say, let's just say. And it's a surprise because I've seen a lot of racism come out overtly rather than covertly, and there's a lot of people that I knew that I was seeing comments on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and it just really made me feel away. And one of those spaces was my football team. So I played football for a Sunday League team. And that summer, I decided I wasn't going to play because I just didn't feel comfortable turning up. Myself and my younger brother had two brown people on the team, essentially. So we spoke to the manager, we voiced our concerns. We said, right, look, we've seen these comments. This is what's going on in the world at the moment. And we just don't feel comfortable coming to football. Like, we feel like people are going to look at us a different way. We're seeing what you think of with people protesting, and one of them protests is this is for rights for me, for myself. Anyway, so my manager had a team meeting, spoke to everyone individually, spoke to everyone with us, without us, and we was welcomed back, and we eventually sorted back into the team, and we felt a bit comfortable. People kind of understood where we was coming from, but that's not where I'm going with. A couple of months later, just as we was in the middle of the pandemic, before Christmas, before we went back into a lockdown, I was playing a game. I think it was the last game before the last lockdown, actually. And another player on the opposition team actually called me a monkey. So my teammate heard this, and he immediately come to me and asked me if I was okay, made sure I was okay, made sure I was all right. And at half time, we decided to abandon the game. All my teammates walked off the pitch. They stood by my side, and they pretty much stood up to racism. But at that point, the opposition team then denied the claim, were aggressive, they were abusive, and it put a lot of pressure on myself. They were trying to force us to play the game. And from that point, we ended up just walking off. We called the game off. And I go into work on Monday morning. Well, before I get there, I get home initially, and I see my partner and my son, and I was just in shock because it happens, and it's happened before, but in that manner, the aggression, the level, what had been building up throughout the year, it kind of really got to me, and I broke down. I just had to release. And I didn't know how to react. At the time when I was actually called a monkey, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react at that point. I tried speaking about it, where it was rebooted, and I just didn't know where to go. So anyway, life has to go on. I went to work on Monday morning. As you do, your team asks you how was your weekend, and I ended up telling the story of what happened at football, and I was embarrassed. I felt embarrassed that had happened to me, and I didn't know why I felt that way. My team was shocked that that stuff still happens, and because they couldn't relate on that level. And then I was thinking, someone else is going to ask me what's happened, or people are going to ask me how my football was, or I've got a Bay meeting later in this week. How do I bring it up? How do I go about this? So the main thing for me was what I took from that, I had to really reflect and think about the challenges I was feeling. So the challenge at that point is that, why should I feel embarrassed that's happening to me? I shouldn't feel embarrassed for the person who said that. They need educating. They're not on the level. And what I did from that point is, when I touched other employees, so I went to other stores and I spoke to managers, straight away I brought it to the forefront. I introduced them to myself and the story. I told them what had happened, how that made me feel, and how that still goes on. I went to the BAME call. I think our general manager at the time, Gary, was on, and a lot of other people. And I shared the story there, and I wanted to share it across the group because people don't believe this still goes on. So for me, the main thing is, when we'll talk about resilience, is really looking at the challenges, reaching out to your close network, your close people, the people that you can rely on, making sure they understand and making sure they can build you up to carry on going. Because it's not everyone's born with it. You can be learned, but it's something that you've got to really reach out to others in some cases.
It is so shocking that it still happens in this environment today, and it really is, and especially for your friends that have stuck by you and supported you in that as well. And I think that's something that really shines through, and that you are open and honest with that as well, in terms of sharing it with people. And it is about educating everyone in that side of things as well. So we've got our next question. So does the ability to be resilient come naturally, or is it something that you think you've had to work on? And if so, how have you worked on it? So Jane, have you got something you'd like to add into that?
Yeah, I'll definitely borrow from Aaron, what Aaron has said. It's not something that everybody is born with. For me personally, resilience to me is a skill. It's a skill that I've had to learn over the years. And with resilience, you have to adapt it to different situations and different challenges that come up in your life. And something that Amos said that really resonated with me was sometimes it can be internal factors that test your resilience. Now, for example, I went to the Montfort University and I studied law. And when it got to my second year of law, I decided this is not the career path that I want for me. What am I going to do? And everybody else, the rest of my peers were thinking, okay, we need to leave university, we need to graduate, we need to find a job. And within me, what resonated the most, there was that fear of change. You know, I've gone to university, I've spent so much money, I've studied law, and I'm about to finish and I've decided, oh no, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. What am I going to do? And it was those internal factors within myself thinking, oh, I'm a very confident person, but what if I go to apply for a company, and what if I go to apply for a job at Enterprise and they ask me, what did you do at university? Why is it that you're not pursuing law? That fear of change and being able to adapt to that challenge and to be able to deal with that situation, to me, is not something that comes naturally. To me, it's something that I've had to learn. And obviously, I'd have to say that it's made me into the person that I am today. And I'm still learning because, for example, we've had COVID and we've had to adapt to working in a different working environment. I've had to deal with the fear of not being able to see my family and friends the same way, in the same proximity I would see them before COVID. And that has had a challenge in itself, and it's tested my resilience. So for me personally, I wouldn't say something that comes naturally. I'd say it's a skill that I've had to learn over the years. And I'm still learning because with life, it'll present different situations and I'll have to adapt accordingly.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And I think it's so true, even from little things such as changing what you did in your degree into a different career. There's always going to be different things along your career, along everything in day-to-day life. And I think there's a huge resilience that we've all had, especially during the pandemic. There's a lot of changes that we've had to come to as well. Bola, have you got anything to add?
For me, I'm quite opposite to what Jane said. I came to this country at a very young age, so I'm 14 years old, and I feel like I've definitely had my share of resilience. So obviously coming here, not understanding the culture, different education system, my parents putting so much on the line to pay for the school fees, because obviously it was a lot as an international student. Being resilient was an act of survival for me because I had to make them proud. I had to achieve all of my goals. I was also the first one of my family. My siblings were looking up to me. Like, to be resilient was very, very important for me. And I must say it wasn't easy. The situations I've had in the past and in school, for example, my accent, failing numerous tests, as you know, in Nigeria, you have a different education system. And when you come here, it's very, very different from what I'm used to. So it was really difficult for me back then. So I definitely just had to just make it work. Like, it was something that had to be done. And just what Amos and Lyndon said earlier, it's something that you can definitely try to improve on. And how can you do that? Like, obviously there'll be times where you need to give up. It's just very important for you to have good support system and just having a goal set for yourself and just looking forward to something to you know what, I have to do this. So for me, as I said, my parents paid a lot for my school fees, being the first one of my family, my siblings looking up to me. Those were the things that kept me motivated. And I just kept on pushing, I have to do this, I have to do this. And also similar to when I joined Enterprise as well, obviously passing your management competition index, I wanted to get that done in 6 months, but I couldn't physically do it. Just obviously you had to meet certain, you had to obviously pass certain things to do that. When I did the first one, okay, so usually, obviously you get it done within a year. As I said, I wanted to get it done in 6 months. I wasn't ready, and I had to change my test date several times. One thing that obviously helped me during that period was my mentors that had surrounding me, telling me, I can do this, don't give up, you can definitely do. And that's something that enterprise is really good at, like just having that numerous support system in your area, around you to help you with whatever challenges you're going through. And one of the main things that also helped me overcome this challenge was surrounding myself with positive people, because resilience is something that can literally bring you down at any time. So like challenges is something that can definitely bring you down many times. And just having people that are very supportive and positive around you is something that can definitely help you in that period. Because there is no point surrounding yourself with people that are negative, because you will fail. So it's really important to just support yourself with that very positive, and just making sure that you have an end goal and looking at that goal at any time you need to. So similar to what she said, it's something that's very natural, but it's also something based on your life challenges that you can also develop to improve your strengths and weaknesses.
That's brilliant. I think your family will be very proud of what you've achieved so far as well. I think you've done an amazing job. And I think in both of what you've said there as well, it is a part of you as well to have that resilience naturally, but it's also you build on it and you learn on it, and you build your confidence in that as well. And you can hit that goal, and it's out there for you to achieve as long as you keep that positive mindset and keep going. And as well, having that supportive network around you. From all the answers that you've given me so far today, it's clear that support network really enhances you to have that resilience with yourself as well. I think, Amos, have you got anything to add to that as well?
Yeah, I think similar to Bola and Jane, it's actually been great hearing from everyone and part of their stories. But for me, I think resilience has been a bit of a journey. And how I mean by that is that I spoke earlier on about what I was facing in terms of how I had to be resilient, thinking how am I going to be successful in my career. But then, even though I was promoted and I got to branch manager, I've done all those, it isn't always sunshine and flowers. There are also still challenges that arise, that come up. So for me, when I'm an area manager now, but I had applied for a role previously, which I was unsuccessful in. So it could have been very easy for me at times like that throughout my career to lean back onto the thoughts that were in the back of my mind in terms of, is it something to do with my race? Is it something to do with my upbringing? Is it the statistics, which so to speak? But where resilience has had to evolve, so to say, for me, is that I then had to go back and reflect on myself. Okay, cool, let's take on the feedback. How can we learn from it? How can we be better? So just to answer the question shortly, I'd say it's a bit of resilience being naturally, but you can also advance this throughout your career and through some learning experiences as well. And just knowing that you have to stay true to your process and what you believe in and your goals, as opposed to letting old stigmas or old thoughts come into play. And then that's where we essentially enhance the resilience through, say, working life in comparison to the natural elements that come. So it's been a bit of a work in progress. And I think my resilience could probably still increase as I go through in life. I don't think I'm done yet. So thanks.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And I think that's definitely something that relates as well, that it is a strength that you do keep building and building on. And there's always going to be something that will test your resilience. And it's about how you come through that in the end. So I think we've got some potential questions from the Q&A box. Laura, if we hadn't much come through.
We have, yes. And actually, Amos kind of just answered this one himself, but I wonder if someone else on the panel would like to pick this one up as well. We've had a question come through, which is, in your opinion, is self-belief the most important driving factor for your career?
Good question. Have we got anyone that would like to pick that one up straight away?
Yeah, I can answer that for you. Self-belief is something that I most definitely feel like is a massive driving factor in your career. Because there's so many things in the world that are uncontrollable, that are out with like what you can do about them. The only thing that, like, I say this to every single person like that's around me, like my younger cousins, when they're getting to like the older ages, becoming adults, I always say, look, life's going to get a little bit hard. There's going to be things out there that you're not going to know what to do about. The only thing that you can control is just yourself. So as long as you believe in yourself, have that self-confidence, like the world's your oyster essentially. So whatever you believe you can get, you will get there. Whatever you believe you are due, you will get it. Just with that self-belief and that self-motivation. It's something that I probably kind of resonate a little bit with what Aaron said in his stories, obviously playing in a football team where he was obviously, him and his brother were the only like brown people in the team. Like for me in Scotland, I was near enough the whole time the only black person in the league. So having that self-belief, even like in those moments where you're starting to doubt yourself, be like, why is it that obviously like everybody else is one way, I'm a different way, but having that network around you and having that support system also helps you deliver that self-belief. So it's very important just in terms of what you believe you can achieve, you can, and then some.
That's great. Thanks for that, Lyndon. I think it's hugely important to have that self-belief as well, to make that difference. Have we got anyone else that wants to add on to that at all?
Yeah, Rebecca, I can definitely add on to that. One thing my dad has always told me when growing up is, Jane, sometimes you can be your own enemy. Sometimes it's the internal factors that you have. Sometimes it's what you're thinking, what you're letting into your mind that will actually let you down. You're a very confident person. You know, you represent yourself in the way that you're supposed to represent yourself. So regardless of the situation and the challenge that faces you, as long as you have that belief in yourself, like, you know what, yes, I can do it. And not feeling failure or disappointment, knowing that, yes, you know, you could have gone for something, but that may have not been for you, but something else along the line will come up as well. The same thing you've said, Amos, that resonates with me. You went for a promotion and maybe that was not the one for you, but now look at the position that you're in. And sometimes I feel like we can be our own enemies in terms of just making sure that we have that self-belief in ourselves. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then how is somebody else going to believe in you? Does that sort of make sense? Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's such a key point, that if you've not got that belief in yourself, how are you going to expect others to believe in yourself? And especially with when you've all spoken about the interviews and the next parts of your careers and where you go to, you've got to have that goal and that belief that you can achieve it as well, to be able to give the other person that confidence that you can do it, and you have got that resilience about you. Or have we got any more questions from the chat box, Laura?
We do indeed, yes. So I know a lot of the panellists today have mentioned the support network around them. And this question is with regards to that. So do you all have a network of people who support you when you're in those stressful situations? And do you go to the same people each time? Or is it a case of referring to different people in different circumstances?
That's a good one as well in terms of your support network. So who would like to start off with that question? Bola, are you ready? Oh, we'll go Bola first.
Sorry. Support system, it's something that's very, very important, and you can never have too many people for that, because everyone would have different things that they can teach you. So when I started my career at Enterprise, whenever I met people and I felt like, you know what, I like what you're saying and I feel like I learned something from you, I would just automatically get your number, your new mentee, Bola, looking forward to learn so much from you. You can never have too many mentors, and there will always be people that you can talk about personal stuff with, people that you can talk about life, you can talk about family, like, because everyone just plays a different role in your life depending on what you need them to do. And sometimes you might find yourself going back to the same person, like, you know, to help you with things, because you connect more with them. And sometimes you might find yourself just going back to like different people, but it's just always important to have as many support systems and network you can have. Like, it's never too much. Like, that's definitely one thing I've learned about Enterprise. It's never too much. Like, you can learn something from everyone, and it's just about you putting those things that you've learned together and like making that something that will work for yourself. So for example, when I started, I was really bad in terms of interacting with customers. Like, it was really difficult for me, obviously because of my accent. I was like, they can't understand me. How am I gonna like talk to them properly? But like, obviously with people helping me, telling me, you can do this. It's not hard as you think. Just give it a go. Just be confident in yourself. And different sales, teaching and customer service learning, I was able to do it. And with doing that, I found myself also helping people in that similar situation. So going to them and them helping me, it's been so important for me in my career. So just as I said, support system is never too small. Like, just build as many as possible, and it would really help you in your career.
Brilliant.
Or even
Thank
life, sorry.
No, that's brilliant. And I think that shows that resilience as well, that you've had those resilience to overcome little things such as building the confidence with customers and talking, and it's little things like that help with the support network as well. I think Aaron as well, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much the same things, but how often do you give advice that you don't take yourself, or you don't, you should take your own advice, and you've got to get opinions of as many people as possible, and different points of view. So I think it's just that important that your support network, you can make it as big as possible, and you can go to other different people for different things. So I think it's just important you do that.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And I think Amos as well, you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, Bola and both Aaron hit the nail on the head. I was just going to say that there's an unlimited amount of people you can have in your support network. Of course, naturally, you can have some people who you'd call on a bit more and who you're a bit tighter with. For example, in my situation, as an assistant manager, the second assistant and the branch manager, we've all become very close. They're now area managers. We speak to each other close to on a daily basis. On a hard day, we can meet up for dinner and relate to certain situations where you can even have a support network outside of work, just however it works for you the best. But I'd always advise to have as many people as possible, and you can call on people in different situations or even all together. But yeah, definitely, there's no amount or set amount, just as many as possible.
Perfect. No, thank you for that. And I think that it's true in everything, like you said, about it being internally and externally as well, to have that support network around you through everything. So have we got any, I think we've got time for a couple more questions, Laura.
Yeah, we still have some more coming through. So the next question is, what is the most important thing that has made you enhance your resilience?
Oh, good one. So what is the most important thing that you have had to enhance your resilience? Does anyone want to start with that one?
Yeah, I can start with that one. Oh,
go for it, Lyndon.
You know what? On you go, Amos. Okay,
I'll start, Lyndon. I'll go to Amos after.
So the thing that I probably would say, like, apart from obviously the story that I shared a little bit earlier on, is just that in my own life, I've always had like certain goals for myself, certain like landmarks I want to reach by a certain stage or a certain age. And that's what's given me that resilience in terms of like, I'm very strong-minded just because I know that's what I want to do. So the way I do it is essentially just plot out like what I want my future to be in like X amount of like months or X amount of days or like X amount of years. And then based on that, I start to map out what can I do to get to the next stage, to get to the next stage, to get to the next stage. And within that, you're always going to have challenges and have difficulties. So as long as you got that kind of like goal that you set for yourself, that's going to make you resilient, because as much as Amos said, you have a hard day, that network around you is very important because you can offload some of the stresses that you have. I'll probably refer back to the original, like the first question that we got was that self-belief and obviously that self-motivation. So having those personal goals, a combination of your network and the self-motivation and self-belief is what gives you that resilience to be able to tackle each day and tackle each challenge and just think of the best ways you can get yourself to that certain position that you want to be in.
Brilliant. And I think it's starting to show that running theme that you've got to have those goals, that self-belief, and that positivity to build on that resilience throughout as well. Amos?
Yeah, I was just going to say, based on what other people have said and all of the experiences that we shared, you can't be resilient without going through adversity. So I think for me, I had the personal factor that, similar to Lyndon, that I've got goals and how I want to succeed as well. But it's also taking on board the knockbacks that you get throughout your career. Sometimes we can get caught in emotion where we think that our career is just going to excel or life is just going to excel and it's all going to be very plain and smooth sailing. But the important factor of being resilient is when you do get the knockbacks and some of those hard times, that you take those on board and you learn from them. And that's where some of the enhanced resilience actually comes in. So it's just taking the good with the bad as well and learning from it and being resilient from that fact.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And I think that is true, that it is always about taking the good with the bad, that there are going to be bumps in the roads. It's not going to be plain sailing the whole way through. And it is about And like you said at the beginning, it's about building that strength, and you're always building in terms of the strength of resilience as well. Laura, I think we've got a few more questions that are coming through.
We have, and I have picked one which is with regards to the type of working environment that we have at Enterprise. Like a lot of companies, it's very fast-paced and it deals with a lot of different people. And one of our viewers was wondering whether that made it then they're harder to then adapt and therefore be resilient, the fact that you are interacting with a lot of different people daily.
It's a great question in terms of that. Oh, Aaron, are you ready to answer that one?
Yeah, definitely. I think the fast-paced environment that we work in makes us more resilient. We deal with so many varying situations, different aspects of different parts of the business, and it changes every single day. So I don't think it makes it more difficult to be resilient. I think it makes it easier too, because you have so many expectations placed in you in terms of goals and achievements and results that you have to get. You have to be resilient, and it just from day one you get a lot of responsibility given to you. And it really builds it and builds it and builds it and builds you into a manager essentially and running your own business. So I think it makes it easier to be resilient. And I think you're really guided to be that kind of person.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I think that's a great answer in terms of how we do have that fast-paced environment, and it will show your skills on a daily basis in that as well. So looking at the time as well, we're going to go on to one about the final question. I know there's some more questions in the chat group as well, and I do apologize if we can't get to all of them, but I'm sure we will find a way to answer those questions and get them out there as well. But obviously the good news is that we do have another session the same time next week as well. So the final question we want to finish on is to yourself, Amos. So why is diversity so important, and why should we as a business encourage future Black leaders?
Great question, Becky. I think for me personally, why I find it important is because from a young age, I grew up and being told that I needed to work extra hard or essentially be extra nice, not to be viewed as the angry Black man. And as crazy as it may sound, it's something that I've grown up knowing in the back of my mind. And it's a bit of a catch-22 because I'm very proud of how I was raised and the person who I am now. And it's great to learn about being professional in certain environments or whatever that is. But why I find diversity important is because I want everyone listening and people moving forward to feel that they can be unapologetically themselves without thinking that they need to do extra because they're Black or extra because they're diverse or whatever. Through conversations such as this and companies such as Enterprise, I feel like we're able to break those barriers and people can feel like they can go into industries and be leaders, essentially being themselves, not feeling like they have these barriers in front of them. Although there are external factors which we are working on through education and having these conversations, and we're not there yet as a nation, but processes like this is what I feel is extremely important because people need to know that they can be leaders no matter what your background is.
Brilliant. I think that's a great thing to finish on, and you can be leaders no matter what in terms of that as well. So I want to thank everyone again on the panel. Thank you for joining us again this week. I think there's been some great answers, some great insight and a great education for people as well in terms of how you've built on your resilience throughout your personal life, throughout your career as well. So like I said before, we have got more chances to engage as well. So we move through the month. So next week's session, like I said, is on the same day at the same time. And we are then going to be covering the topics of communication. And that's going to be coming from our employees from our Scotland and our South East group as well. So we also want to ensure that we do truly move forward together with this. And as a result, we are going to be running our Future Black Leaders program in December. And we'd love for you to all be able to join us on this as well. So more details will be hitting your inbox soon with that. But thank you again, everyone, for today. Thank you for all the questions as well. And it's been a great session. Thank you, guys.